I am a crane master, and my wife is a crane commander. In recent years, due to the sluggish construction market, most construction workers are basically unemployed. But my wife is very good at socializing, and I have never been out of work. I often brag to my coworkers about this. However, every time they look at me, they reveal that they want to say something but stop. I thought they were jealous of me, but I didn't expect that they looked down on me. Because they all said that my work was earned by my wife sleeping with me. Hubby, don't listen to their nonsense. Sophia hugged me and said, I am with you, all day. How can I have time to go out and mess around? Do you believe them but not me? Of course I believe you. I said absent-mindedly, I just think they are so aggrieved by the rumors. There is no way, I am too beautiful. If I can't get it, I will gossip about it. Sophia smiled, don't worry, husband, I have already told James, they dare not say more. Yeah. I nodded. James is our foreman, his name is James. After I told him about this, those big mouths really didn't dare to say anything. After all, we all depend on him for our livelihood. Few people would have nothing to do after eating, and would offend him. As for why he helped us, it was because he was the male protagonist of the dispute with my wife. My wife went out with a lot of bags, on the pretext of thanking James. Seeing her wearing a revealing skirt and twisting her buttocks, when she went out, I couldn't help but laugh. They were right, my wife did cheat. I found out about this not because of the rumors on the construction site, but because James was too careless. He wore my wife's underwear by mistake. Summer pants are very thin, and once they are wet with sweat, they can be seen clearly. At that time, I was so angry that I almost jumped up and punched James on the spot. But a pair of underwear is not enough as evidence. If I hit him for this, not only would I alert the enemy, but I might even be blackmailed by him. So I gritted my teeth and swallowed it in one breath, ready to find another opportunity to talk about it. And here comes the opportunity. I put on a mask and a hat, trying to make myself less conspicuous. I followed Sophia, keeping a certain distance to avoid being discovered by her. Sophia did not go directly to James' office, she walked into a small supermarket. I waited outside for a while, and then followed her in. There were not many people in the supermarket, so I found a shelf to hide. I stood in the corner of the supermarket, watching Sophia wandering in the family planning area. She took out her mobile phone and took a photo, then made a call. James, I sent you the photos. Which one do you want to use? Sophia's voice was so sweet that I could almost hear James' laughter on the other end of the phone. I clenched my fist tightly, and my nails almost dug into my flesh. I was still holding a glimmer of luck. On the way. I wondered if James' wife happened to buy the same underwear as Sophia. Now it seems that I was just deceiving myself. We were an adulterous couple. Sophia flirted with James for a few more words, then chose the box set according to James' instructions, and then happily hummed a song to check out. I turned my face away in disgust. Sophia and I have been childhood sweethearts, and have known each other since we were young. We started dating when we were in our teens. Moreover, we were not good at studying, so we didn't get into college, and we got married early after working. Now we have a son and a daughter. Although our life is not rich, it is also plain and happy. But now all this is almost gone. I smiled sarcastically, and then I looked at my sleeves wet with tears, and raised my hand to wipe my face. I was about to look up to see Sophia. But at this moment, a loud voice suddenly stopped me in the supermarket. Brother Wang, are you shopping in the supermarket with your sister-in-law? I was startled by this greeting, and hurriedly looked in the direction of Sophia nervously. I took a look and breathed a sigh of relief. Maybe I was too sentimental for a while. Sophia had already left. It was Storm, a co-worker on the construction site, who called me. He was holding a bucket of instant noodles and a bottle of drink. It looked like he had just got off work and was ready to have a quick bite. Ah, it's Storm. I said embarrassedly, your sister-in-law. She came by herself. I just happened to pass by, so I came in to buy something. Storm looked at me strangely, but in the end he didn't ask any more questions, just came up to me and said he would go back to the construction site with me. I refused without thinking, and just said that I had something to do with the foreman James. After all, I was going to catch an adulterer. How could I go the same way with him? However, I didn't expect that. When Storm heard that I was going to find James, he immediately said that he had something to do with James. I was about to ask him what the matter was, and was about to persuade him to go another day. As a result, I heard him make a few phone calls and call a few other co-workers to go together to ask for wages. This reminded me that I had not received my salary for several months. Workers work all year round just for that little money. This matter is definitely not something that can be persuaded back. I could only bite the bullet and follow a few people to James' office. When we arrived at the office compound, the foreman's office door was not open, but locked. I immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, at least I didn't have to be publicly executed. However, I was still too happy too early. When I was secretly rejoicing in my heart, a woman's laughter came from James' office. I was very familiar with the voice. It was the voice of my wife Sophia. "James, you are so bad." There was a hint of coquetry in Sophia's voice. I could almost imagine her bitch look. "What's wrong with that?" James laughed. "I just asked you, who's older, me or him? Size isn't the most important thing, it's mainly about him. He's so boring, he only knows how to make money all day. And he only has those two tricks. How can he be as interesting as you, James?" Sophia said shyly. James laughed again. "Of course I'm interesting, you little slut, don't stick your ass up. Oh, it's so annoying, remember to come to my house today, just like last time, George has to work overtime." Sophia said with a smile, and I was shaking with anger. Obviously she told me that she was shy, so I restrained myself. And they are so cruel, there are children at home, and they do this. I was immediately angry and kicked the door. The people who work on the construction site all year round are very strong, and the broken door of this container can be opened with one kick. What I saw was two half-naked people. Before they could react, I punched James in the face. "Fuck you. James, you dared to rape my wife." As soon as I said this, James was stunned. The panicked Sophia was also stunned, and the few people watching the excitement at the door were also stunned. They all looked at me, thinking they had heard wrongly. After all, anyone with a discerning eye could see that this was an underground love affair and cheating. But I didn't care what they thought. I punched James a few more times, and the co-workers came to pull me up immediately after they reacted. After being stopped, the adulterer and the adulteress put on their clothes. Sophia remained silent, and James immediately retorted, "Who raped your wife? Don't yell." I know James' psychology. If their affair is exposed, it will be a moral issue at most. If it is defined as rape, then it is illegal. He doesn't want to be accused for no reason. But he doesn't want to be accused for no reason, so he can feel at ease to cheat on me. What's the logic? You didn't rape my wife, so what were you doing? I asked knowingly, looking back and forth at the two of them. James coughed immediately after I asked this question, and Sophia's eyes were also erratic. But neither of them replied to me. James didn't reply to me because there were so many people here, and he didn't dare to admit it in front of so many people. After all, he has a rich tigress wife, and he can get to where he is now thanks to his wife. Although there are always rumors that he is looking for women outside, he has never been caught, so his wife just turned a blind eye. However, it was different today. He was caught on the spot, and not alone. Even if he admitted it verbally, his wife would not let him go. As for Sophia, she dared not admit it even more. The money in the family is basically earned by me. If she divorces me, and the divorce is because of having an affair outside, she will not get a penny, and the child will not belong to her. Her vampire family, she will be skinned alive when she goes back. No one dared to speak, and the scene suddenly became awkward. Until a sharp female voice broke the silence of the office. "Damn, James. You are stealing people and coming to my place now." James' wife Luna ran into the office and grabbed James' ear. James felt like his life was grabbed, and he begged for mercy in a low voice. "Wife, listen to my explanation, this is all a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding?" Luna sneered at James and Sophia, and slapped him hard in the face. The sound was crisp and loud. "You are being held down, and you still tell me it's a misunderstanding." James staggered after being hit, and he covered his face. There was no guilt in his eyes, only the frustration of enduring his wife's anger. Sophia stood aside, lowered her head, and dared not look at anyone. Her face was still flushed, but now there was more shame and fear. I stood aside, folding my arms and watching all this. When I was about to catch the adulterer, I felt ashamed and angry. But if I really caught him, I felt that it was not me who cheated, so why should I be ashamed? And she treated me like this, why should I care? It was these two bitches who should feel ashamed. Unlike my mentality of watching the show, Luna slapped James a few more times, but she seemed to feel that it was not enough to vent her anger. She took out her mobile phone and turned on the live broadcast and began to yell at James to kneel down, and then looked at Sophia. "Are you the bitch who seduced my husband? Damn it, roll over here and kneel together so that everyone can see you two dogs and bitches." As she said that, Luna rolled up her sleeves and walked towards Sophia. Seeing that the situation was not good, Sophia immediately wanted to pull my arm and get behind me. "Husband, save me." I reflexively avoided her, but immediately remembered that James had not entered yet, so I stepped forward to stop Luna. "What do you mean by seducing your husband? My wife is a victim." As soon as I said this, Luna looked at me in shock. "Hey, no, your wife is a victim. Who on the construction site doesn't know the relationship between your wife and my husband? Are you addicted to being a cuckold? Now you are still defending your wife." I didn't refute. I just picked my ears and said against my will, "She was forced." Hearing my reply, Sophia lowered her head. Luna couldn't help but scold me. I know they all think I'm an idiot now, but later, I guess they won't have time to think so. I said lightly, "I have called the police about James raping my wife." As soon as I said this, several people looked at me and thought I was mentally ill. Sophia also looked at me. She grabbed my clothes. "Husband, What?" I frowned at her. "You won't say that you seduced James and want a divorce, right?" She was stunned by my question, then lowered her head and gritted her teeth. No, it was James who raped me." Hearing her answer, James immediately became anxious and rushed towards Sophia, cursing. The police also arrived at this time. Just ran into James, who was furious and wanted to hit someone because Sophia bit back. Seeing this, 2 policemen rushed up and subdued James. A trace of panic flashed across James' face, but his body struggled under the suppression of the police, to no avail. "What are you doing? Let me go." James' roar echoed in the office, his eyes full of anger and unwillingness. "James, we received a report that you are suspected of rape. Please come back to the police station with us for investigation." A policeman said coldly, his hand tightly clasped James' wrist, not allowing him to have any room for resistance. "I didn't. Sophia seduced me first." James pointed at Sophia and said loudly, "And we are lovers. This is consensual. There is no rape. I have chat records and transfer records to prove it." Hearing that James was angry and was about to start proving himself, Sophia was so scared that she knelt down in front of me. "Husband, you have to believe me. James forced me. You know James. He usually looks for women outside. Now he has had enough of playing outside and wants to play with decent women. I didn't want to, so he threatened to drive us away and make us unable to stay in this construction site. I was scared by him. I was afraid that both of us would have no jobs, so how could we support the children? So I had to succumb to him." Sophia believed what she said at the end, and she actually began to sob and sob. It was simply the image of a little woman who was bullied by a bully and felt wronged. Sophia complained first, leaving James dumbfounded. As everyone looked at him, with inquiring eyes, and Luna glared at him, he got anxious and started to curse. "Fuck your grandma, Sophia. Why didn't I know you were so good at pretending before?" James was so angry that he wanted to slap Sophia twice, but he was held tightly by the police and couldn't move. In the end, it was the police who stopped the farce. Because we were all related personnel, we were all taken back to the police station to make statements. Maybe Sophia wanted to prevent me from finding out about her extramarital affair from her mobile phone. There are very few records about her and James on the internet, and even if there are, they are very ambiguous. As for the transfer, there are indeed many transfers with special meanings. But this is not enough to prove that the two had an extramarital affair. Because Sophia said that these transfers were sent by James to pursue her, and she was bewitched and accepted them. Finally, James was furious, and directly threw out his ultimate move, a series of hotel room booking records between him and Sophia. Now Sophia was completely panicked, and knelt in front of me again. "Husband, you have to believe me, it was really James who forced me. This can completely prove the relationship between the two, and the case is basically clear." I curled my lips, looked at her with disdain, and tried to comfort her while holding back my nausea, and then changed the outcome again. "Even if you and my wife are really lovers, What evidence do you have to prove that you didn't rape my wife? I opened my mouth and shocked everyone again. This time, they didn't look at me with eyes that suspected I was mentally ill, but looked at me directly with eyes that looked at me as if I was mentally retarded. James was so angry that he wanted to curse. George, I know I slept with your wife, and you are very angry, but this is not something I did alone. Why do you always target me? It's true that he didn't do it alone, but even if he had to clean it up, he had to clean it up one by one. Sophia also started crying again because of my inspiration, and began to talk about how James coerced her into having sex. Rape is hard to say. No matter whether the two are lovers or husband and wife, as long as there is one time that the woman's will is violated, then it is considered rape. In addition, James and Sophia were more intense, and Sophia had bruises of various sizes, so it was even more difficult to explain. Finally, under Sophia's insistence, James was jailed for raping his mistress. A month has passed since this matter was settled. Because the police intervened, the evidence of Sophia's cheating was complete and legal, so I filed a divorce lawsuit with the court. When Sophia received the notice from the court, she was stunned, her eyes full of disbelief. I understand, after all, how could her husband, who was so stupid to defend her, change overnight? I smoked and admired her expression, and all the grievances disappeared at this moment. George, how could you do this to me? Sophia's voice was crying, and her tears were rolling in her eyes. Why do you say that? I didn't answer her directly, but asked her with a smile. She was stunned for a moment, and the tears in her eyes flowed down. She used her usual method and cried and knelt down in front of me. Honey, I know you mind the James thing, but you also know I was forced. And James has been sent to jail. Can't you forgive me and let's live a good life? Her actions made me laugh again. Sister, can you stop acting? I gave you one chance, but you're still addicted to acting. You don't really think I'm a bootlicker and a fool, do you? My voice was calm, but every word was like a sharp knife, piercing her heart. Sophia's face turned pale instantly, as if she realized something. George, you actually calculated me. I took the last puff of the cigarette, blew out the smoke at her, and praised, so smart. After getting my confirmation, Sophia took off all her disguises. She started to scold me for being insidious and ruthless, and said she would go to overturn James' case and send me to jail. But I only asked her one question: didn't you insist on this? She lost her temper and begged me for a while. Seeing that I was really determined to break up with her, she threatened me, George, if you don't let me live a good life, I won't let you live a good life either. I ignored all her words. However, just when I thought everything was over, the two children disappeared. It is not uncommon to hide children during a divorce. But what right did she have to want children? I kicked the sofa in anger and started calling Sophia. The result was obvious. She didn't answer even after calling several times. I drove directly to her parents' house. When I got there, I didn't see her. But when I passed the shoe cabinet, I saw a pair of shoes kicked behind the cabinet. Those were Sophia's shoes. My mother-in-law ignored my ugly expression. When she saw me coming empty-handed, she put on a face. Young people nowadays are really rude. They don't even bring something when they visit their elders. They just come empty-handed and eat for free. Her voice was sarcastic. I took a deep breath and didn't want to argue with her. I just wanted to know where the child was. Where is Sophia? I have something urgent to find her. When my mother-in-law heard that I was looking for Sophia, her eyes were guilty for a moment, and then she said with full energy, Sophia, isn't she your wife? Why are you asking me? I knew she didn't want to admit it. I was too lazy to continue wasting words with her, so I pushed her away and prepared to search directly. But as soon as I entered, she immediately started yelling. Oh, come on, everyone. Breaking into a private house. My mother-in-law's voice was sharp and piercing, like a sharp knife scraping against my ear. I frowned, ignored her shouting, and rushed into the house. The living room was empty. I turned and walked towards the bedroom, kicking open the half-closed door. There was still no one in the room. I turned around to search the next room, but I thought something was wrong, so I went back and opened the closet door. Sophia was sitting inside with her phone in her hand. She was obviously startled when she saw me suddenly break in, and her phone fell on her clothes. George, why are you here? Sophia asked unnaturally. I didn't answer her, but asked directly, where are the children? Where did you hide them? Sophia's eyes dodged like her mother-in-law, and then she began to quibble. How do I know? Aren't they at your house? You didn't let me see them, and now they're missing. You come to find me. I was amused by her words. Do you really want me to call the police? When Sophia heard that I was going to call the police, she also started to get angry, pointing at me and said, George, don't threaten me with calling the police. I tell you, although you sued me, we haven't completely divorced yet, and the custody rights haven't been divided yet. And no matter what time, I am the mother of 2 children. Even if you call the police, it will be a family dispute at most. What can you do to me? What? You're not pretending so soon. I mocked. She choked at my sarcasm, then fell silent for a while and began to show her true colors. You can see the child, but you have to leave the house with nothing. The child belongs to me, and you have to pay 3 alimony after the divorce. Hearing that she asked me to leave the house with nothing and still wanted the child, I was surprised at her shamelessness, but what the hell was 3 alimony? Seeing that I didn't understand what she meant, she said again, the other one is for me. People really laugh when they are extremely speechless. How dare you bring it up? Why wouldn't I dare bring it up? It's the same abroad. Sophia tried to be tough, and don't forget, the child is in my hands. Don't try to play tricks on me again. I looked at Sophia coldly, and I was shocked by her shamelessness. I thought she would make trouble with me, but I didn't think she would even use her own child as a bargaining chip. As for her fight for custody with me, it seems that she doesn't want the child now, but probably wants to continue to control me with the child so that she can continue to get money. But why should I let her have her way? I gritted my teeth in anger. Okay, but you have to let me see the 2 children first. I have to make sure they are safe. Hearing my agreement, Sophia's eyes flashed with a hint of pride. Why didn't you agree earlier? Why did you say so much? And I'm the mother of the children. How can I make them unsafe? Forget about meeting them. I'll video chat with you. Sophia stood up from the closet, patted the dust off her body, then picked up the phone and made a video call. Dad, let the children answer the phone. George wants to see them. Sophia said happily. On the other side of the video, my father-in-law quickly handed the phone to the children. On the screen, the faces of a pair of children appeared in my sight, with confusion and anxiety in their eyes. Dad. There was a hint of surprise in the children's voices. Anan, Ping Ping, are you okay? I tried to control my emotions and not let my anger and worry affect the children. Dad, we miss you. The daughter's voice was choked with sobs, while the son bit his lips tightly, trying not to let the tears flow down. My heart was broken, and I wanted to rush to them immediately and hug them tightly in my arms. But I knew I couldn't, at least not now. Dad misses you too, baby. You have to be good, and listen to Grandpa, understand? I tried to comfort them, with a gentle voice. Anan and Ping Ping nodded obediently. The video call ended soon, and Sophia looked at me impatiently. Okay, the children have finished watching. When are you going to apply for a clean house? I took a deep breath and looked at Sophia. It will take a few days, and I need to sort out some materials to do this. It's really troublesome. Sophia warned again impatiently, then you should collect materials for me in the next few days, and don't call the police to play tricks on me. I nodded symbolically in agreement with her words, and then left his house immediately. According to the background in the video just now, it should be the cellar of Sophia's old house. My mother-in-law and Sophia are both in the new house, and there are at most 2 people over there, my father-in-law and my brother-in-law. I called the police and told them the details, then changed my clothes and rushed to Sophia's old house first. When I was almost at the entrance of the village, I saw my brother-in-law. I parked the car some distance away from the entrance of the village and walked closer. I had to be careful not to let my brother-in-law find me. I was wearing an ordinary gray hoodie with a hat, trying to make myself look inconspicuous. I hid behind a big tree and observed my brother-in-law. He was smoking and looking around from time to time, obviously keeping watch. I sneered in my heart, it's really a family going together. I went around to the other side of the village, where there was a path leading to my father-in-law's old house. I walked carefully to avoid making any noise. I knew that if I was discovered, I didn't know what they would do to the child. Fortunately, I came to the back door of the old house smoothly. I pushed the door open gently, and it creaked. My heart tightened, but fortunately there was no movement in the house. I tiptoed in. The house was filled with a musty smell. Obviously, no one had lived there for a long time. I came to the entrance of the cellar, where there was a heavy wooden door. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. A stronger musty smell came to my nose, and I couldn't help coughing. I turned on the flashlight on my mobile phone and walked down the steps carefully. The cellar was full of various sundries and some old furniture. I looked around for the children, and my heart was full of anxiety. Finally, I found them behind a pile of old boxes. An and Ping Ping were curled up together. Their faces were full of tears. My heart ached, and I rushed over immediately. Dad. The children saw me and shouted in surprise. I was also surprised, but I still carefully covered the mouths of the two children and told them not to speak. I checked the children's bodies and confirmed that they were not injured, so I prepared to take them away from this ghost place. However, at this moment, I heard footsteps coming from above. My heart tightened. Did they find out? I quickly turned off the flashlight and took the children to hide behind an old wardrobe. I covered the children's mouths tightly and signaled them not to make a sound. The footsteps were getting closer and closer, and I heard my brother-in-law's voice. I seemed to hear something just now. Dad, did you hear it? My father-in-law replied, maybe those two little things are making trouble again. My brother-in-law cursed a few words, with his father-in-law's words, and then the footsteps gradually faded away. I breathed a sigh of relief and prepared to take the two children away. However, before I took 2 steps, someone hit me on the head with a stick. A sharp pain instantly swept through my body, and the two children cried instantly. It was my brother-in-law who hit me, and my father-in-law followed behind him. I told you there were other people, Dad, but you still don't believe me. The uncle-in-law smiled triumphantly with a stick in his hand. If there are, then there are. Why did you hit him so hard? Besides, if you beat him like this, how can your sister make him leave the house and ask him for money later? The father-in-law blamed. Then don't divorce, just let your sister become a widow, and everything will still be ours. The brother-in-law said sinisterly. The father-in-law was shocked when he heard this, and then paused and said, then kill the 2 children too, so that your sister can remarry and get a dowry. After getting the consent, the brother-in-law took out the axe for chopping wood behind him and came directly towards me. I covered the blood on my head and heard that they not only wanted to kill for money, but also the 2 children. My eyes were bloodshot immediately. There was no way they could harm my children. I let the 2 children run out first, and then closed the door of the cellar. An hour later, I was covered in blood and heard the sirens coming from outside. My father-in-law and brother-in-law died on the spot before they could be rescued. I had multiple fractures and wounds all over my body, but I survived after rescue. Because I had opened the audio and video recordings in advance, when I went there was sufficient evidence to prove that I was acting in self-defense, and I was acquitted. My mother-in-law was sentenced to 10 years in prison for kidnapping. As for Sophia, because she is the mother of the child, it is not easy to judge in this regard. In the end, I successfully divorced her. She left the house with nothing, and the 2 children belonged to me. As for her kidnapping of the children, because of her sophistry, it did not stand. But I was not angry, because this tossing had been over for a year and a half. At most, James will be released in another year and a half. By then, she might feel worse than being in prison. However, Sophia did not think of these, and she was very proud of herself for being intact. I told you that you can't do anything to me, and you still don't believe it. I didn't want to talk to her, so I straightened my clothes and prepared to drive away. Seeing that I ignored her, Sophia immediately blocked my car. I'm talking to you. Why don't you answer me? Why, you can't stand losing. I looked at her calmly and agreed, well, you won. You are the only one left in your family now. Your family is gone, and your children don't recognize you. You are free now. Sophia's smile froze on her face, and she broke down instantly. George, stop being so sarcastic. I will definitely live a better life than you. I am so beautiful, and there are a lot of people who want me. Unlike you, an old man with a family, no one will want you for the rest of your life. Okay, then I wish you find more men. I didn't want to say anything to her anymore. I turned the steering wheel of the car, stepped on the accelerator and drove away. After breaking up with Sophia, because Sophia had a history of kidnapping children, I was afraid that she would not live a happy life in the future, and she would threaten me with the children in desperation, so I took my 2 children and parents to live in another city. After moving to another city, I went to a local construction site to find a job as a tower crane master because I had to raise a child. But what I didn't expect was that the boss this time was an acquaintance, James' ex-wife Luna. She was also surprised when she saw me, and then I chatted with her and learned that she had also divorced James and wanted to live in another city. Thanks to you, if it weren't for your trouble, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to get back so much property. Luna thanked me. I didn't respond to her thanks, but just said that they were wrong in the first place. Later, Luna invited me to dinner many times in order to thank me. I wanted to refuse, but this person is my boss now, and it's not good to refuse every time. So after this back and forth, we became familiar with each other. Then she invited me to her other company, and asked me to try to change the industry. After all, the construction industry is no longer good. I accepted her kindness, and began to shine in the new industry. And because of our daily life, she became my new wife. In the second year, we had our own child, and the 5 of us lived happily together. Everything was peaceful and tranquil. Until late one night, James caught Sophia, who was beaten to death, and came to the door. As soon as the door opened, James wanted to kneel down and admit his mistake reflexively. But when he saw that it was me who opened the door, and Luna was holding a baby in her arms. James' eyes suddenly turned red. George, so this is what you had planned. James' eyes seemed to be spewing fire, his hands were clenched into fists, and his joints turned pale due to excessive force. George, you despicable man. James cursed, rushed forward and wanted to punch me. But before he took 2 steps, he was subdued by the security guard called by Luna. Just like being subdued by the police many years ago, he still couldn't move this time. I stood at the door and looked at James, who was subdued, and Sophia, who was beaten with blood foam in her mouth indifferently. Without saying a word, Sophia saw me again, and she was no longer proud this time. She crawled to my legs and begged, "Hubby, I know I was wrong. Can you forgive me?" This time, before I could say anything, Luna grabbed me and stared at Sophia fiercely. What are you yelling about? George is my husband. If you need a man, go out and find one yourself. Sophia was stunned by Luna's yelling, and then looked at me, hoping that I could say something. But I ignored her, and just smiled helplessly at Luna. Okay, why get angry with someone like her? Don't get yourself angry. It's cold outside. Go in first. Luna nodded at me, then glared at Sophia again, and turned back to the house with the child in her arms. At this time, Sophia lowered her head and began to cry. Tears streaked across the dirt and blood on her face, and the arrogance and pride she once had were gone. I took a deep breath, looked at the scene in front of me, and my heart was surprisingly calm. All the grudges and hatreds over the years seemed to have become less important at this moment. Take them away. I said to the security guards indifferently, without a trace of emotion in my voice. The security guards nodded and dragged James and Sophia out of my sight. I turned and walked into the house, closed the door, and isolated all the noise and disturbance outside. Luna sat on the sofa and coaxed the child softly. Ann and Ping Ping were sleeping in the bedroom upstairs. The most precious existence in my life is here. I took the child from Luna and let her rest first. But she acted coquettishly towards me, not at all like the fierce look outside the door just now. I coaxed her helplessly, and she went back to her room to sleep obediently. James came to make trouble several times later, but because they showed their faces last time, they were stopped by the security guards before they came in. As for Sophia, she disappeared completely after that night. I thought she had gone out to hide from James, but a few months later, because of the stench in the urban village, the surrounding residents called the police and found out that Sophia was killed by James. Sophia's death was very tragic, almost like torture. Because it was very cruel, James was directly sentenced to death. After hearing that Sophia was dead, the 2 children who had originally decided not to care about Sophia in this life couldn't help crying, and asked me if I could go to my mother's grave. I can completely understand why they would do this. After all, they have been together for so many years. It is absolutely impossible to have no feelings. I took the 2 children to Sophia's grave, and gave her flowers. This was also the last time I saw her, whether dead or alive, the last time in this life. From then on, we will never see each other again.